Well, there are many people who are aspiring to start their own business. There will be many who will start their own business in due course of time. You have advised, you have led many businesses. Today, it's the day and age of Shark Tank, and it is the day and age of valuation versus value creation. I personally think that there is a small difference between the two.
Big difference.
But I would like to learn more from you the difference between sharks in tanks and then there are whales in oceans, as I call them. And you, sir, have been a whale in the ocean. But to a 17-year-old who is starting out afresh, who does not come from lineage, who does not come from privilege, it's all well and good to say that pay attention to value creation. But for the person in question, valuation would also perhaps be as important. Or do you think that the aim should be value creation over valuation? What is your advice to a 16 or a 17-year-old who wants to start out in the field of business?
Well, firstly, we are very fortunate in our country that we have an environment in the last 20 years has gradually improved. An environment where young people can get finance, get advice. There are associations and bodies that teach you how to be an entrepreneur. So, I'm glad you asked this question. I always hesitate to tell young people, तुमको ऐसा करना चाहिए, वैसा करना चाहिए. But I can tell you from my experience that nothing in life is achieved without commitment to values. And if you're starting, India desperately needs enterprise. By the way, I think one of our shortcomings, I will not call it failing, since independence, it is not a question of this party or that party, I am not talking politics here, is we have failed to create an enterprise-friendly culture. Every government has said, I have created it, but that's not true. An enterprise-friendly culture expects to assign a role to enterprise. So the first lesson I have learned, which I would like to share with you, is why are you starting a company? You must start a company when you have some some intention of how to serve humanity. If you don't have enough enterprise in this country, you will not generate the taxes. If you don't generate the taxes, you will not have the money to spend on educational institutions, social, cultural, and then you go into things. That's been one of during my life, my observations. So when you start an enterprise, think of why you want to start an enterprise. I call this niyat. What is your niyat? Why are you want? Is it just to start another bottle banana here, both bottle here, chalo hum bhi bottle bana lete. Then you will get into this valuation chakra. The second thing that I would say early on, you have to do in enterprise is to set up niti. What is the way of behavior? Insaniyat hona chahiye. Many people think they are founders and they are chasing valuation. And then you see in the newspaper some of the stories. That's not the way to do enterprise. If you have good niyat, you have good niti, then you must have good niyam. So I call this the 3N formula. आप लोग बच्चे हो तो this N 3N formula, 4P formula आप लोगों को पसंद होगा. If you don't have, just like if you're raising a child in a family, you can't say, और यार बात दिखा देंगे use. Doesn't work. Right from the time the child is a baby, the mother and the father and the uncle and grandfather will invest time in imparting values. They may not be perfectly successful, but they will teach them the values of truth, honesty. They may become big and do something else. That's a separate matter. But I'm saying that the parents try to do that. And you must treat your enterprise, if you're a startup, like a baby. Treat it with the same niyat, niti, and niyam. In which case, answering your question, you must look for value to the other people who have given you money, whom you're employing. You see, include I am your own institution, you know. All these people meaning you have volunteers, you have 3 mentors. You have to treat them with inayat, ibadat, and insaniyat. if I might put it a different way. If you don't treat human beings with inayat, I hope all of you understand the word inayat. Inayat means kindly, with grace. Ibadat means something similar, and insaniyat means fairly, And these are the things that young people are not taught. Enterprise is seen as a money machine. And our public vatavaran is a bit like that. But since you asked me, I would like to share with you that I have worked for 2 companies where right from the time I joined, long time ago, 55 years ago, I was only 21, 22 at that time, they taught me these without using these words. I hope all of you will become entrepreneurs, but entrepreneur puts a big responsibility on you to do these things that I've just said. Think of creating value, not valuation. Whereas everybody is obsessed with valuation. पैसे कैसे कमाना है? कमाइए, but सर्फ का एडवर्टाइजिंग में होता है ना, धो डालो मगर प्यार से, पैसा कमाओ मगर प्यार से, इनायत से.
No, very right, very well articulated, well said, sir. But this kind of thought, sir, comes from the 5 people that surround you. I've always believed that the 5 people who are around you will essentially, the sum total of those people is who you will become. So you grew up with role models and with people around you for inspiration who are differently, who are different both in terms of thought and action from the ones that necessarily surround us today. I was just explaining, saying that we are more accustomed to T20 in comparison to Test cricket, and there's nothing wrong between choosing one over the other. But sir, the environment that we place ourselves in, essentially, we become the sum total of that environment, is what I believe. So, is this belief correct? And if it is, sir, then how large a role does educational institutions and your friend circle play in shaping who you become in the future?
You're almost, the way you're framing your question gives the impression that you're a Katputli. You're put into one Vatavaran and everything is shaping you. But you're also shaping that. So I think it's very important to notice the type of interaction you're having with your environment. My greatest inspiration and influence has not been some famous man. If you ask me, I won't say Mahatma Gandhi. I never met him. Even if I meet him, it will be for 5 minutes. Though Gandhiji died soon after I was born, though the 2 events are not related. I think you get inspiration from big leaders. Gandhiji, Abraham Lincoln, Vallabhbhai Patel. But you get instruction from your father, your mother, your uncle, your grandfather. So I have found that whereas I used to look for inspiration by reading big people, and that's a good thing to do, I'm not against it, you will never get instruction from that. Instruction you get by observing your father, your brother, your sister, your uncle. And an occasion like this. What is good about this is you're exposed to a number of people whom you didn't know before you walked in here this morning. And I think you have to be influenced both by inspiration and instruction. So, yes, times are changing. My grandfather used to live in the village, as probably many of you, or your great-grandfathers, since I'm talking to a younger age group. But when he first saw a steam engine, when he was a young boy, he told me, he said, "Qayamat aa gayi hai." It took 8 days to go from our village to Madras city. It was called Madras at that time, not Chennai. For those of you who don't know that is. Now he's saying this train will take you in 8 hours. Then of course in my father's generation, he said, why 8 hours? I'll go in 1 hour. There's an aeroplane. In that sense, there's a T20, there's a Test cricket. One of these days you get a T5, tennis ball cricket bhi aage aajkal, which your generation will disapprove of. वातावरण बदलता जा रहा है, हम भी उसमें अडैप्ट होते जा रहे हैं. The beauty is, human beings are very adaptable. What you should be looking for is, am I adaptable? Adaptable doesn't mean कि रंग बदलते रहो, एक दिन डॉक्टर बन गया, एक दिन साइकोलॉजिस्ट बन गया, एक दिन क्रिकेटर बन गया. That's not what I mean by adaptable. Whatever you're good at. So I started electronics engineering. I started as a computer engineer when there was no computer. I mean, there were 2 computers in India. And I had to adapt in a company which said, if you don't touch the sweating shoulders of the people who work in this company's factories and sales, marketing, you cannot become their leader. मुझे धक्का लगा. मैं तो IIT से आया था. मैं कुछ super intelligent बंदा था. So they sent me on to work as a salesman. Where in Nagpur, Igatpuri, Shirdi, and there was no van in those days. This van and all has come just now. एक बैलगाड़ी लेके जाते थे. उसमें डालडा साबुन वगैरह. You spend your whole day talking to retailers, and you say, Agarwal ji, आज क्या लेंगे? 10 पेटी लेंगे. People thought this is a lousy job to do. But I learned more from those Agarwal jis about business than I would have learned from many books. Because Agarwal ji is doing the real stuff. कहाँ से पैसे आते हैं, कहाँ से जाते हैं, he keeps track of it. So my suggestion is, look for inspiration from famous people, look for instruction from people who are close to you, and see what you can learn from any person. Even Agarwal ji could teach me something. And I am very respectful of that. I can tell you many stories of what the Agarwal... I'm using Agarwal ji, please don't mistake me if there's an Agarwal sitting in this group. I'm using it as a mnemonic for a trader or a retailer. I'm not saying this in any bad way. But there are many stories that I've learned.
And one can learn from everyone and everything. And that is something that people like you are living examples of. That you before you there was Mukesh Batra, and he also continued to say the same thing. And he said that one should continue to learn at every point in time in life. So
actually, I think that is Mukesh Batra, no? He's there. Everything in life, there is something to learn from. But the rules of life are very simple. From your Bap Dada's time, your ancestors' time, 3, 4, 4, 10 commandments, Bible में, कब से Moses के समय से आता है. Has anybody today taught you that covet other people's wives? That doesn't prevent you from doing it. That's a separate matter. But the rules are clear. दूसरे का चोरी नहीं करना. Treat other people well. You look at the Vedanta. The rules are very simple. Swami Vivekananda said this in interpreting Vedanta to American audiences back in 1893. When they asked him, sir, we are all a commercial Vatavaran in America. Don't talk to us in mysterious Vedantic terms. Tell us in simple way what we should do to run a good business. आपने भी पूछा था थोड़ी देर पहले. He said, do only 4 things. Now look at the brilliance. Number 1, become self-aware. Because you are your greatest enemy. आपका कोई शत्रु नहीं है, आप खुद शत्रु है. Because आपके अंदर से आता है. Second, he says protect the resources that enable you to do business. Air, water. ये ESG से पहले हाँ. Air, water, people, respect it. The soil. Third thing, he says serve other people before serving yourself. And the 4th thing is, take firm decisions but implement them with compassion. Now, you are going to have startups, do these 4 things. It's Vedantic, it's been coming for 4,000 years. So, I like the approach that Ayman takes. One of the reasons I try to agree to your request to come is the principles are very easy. The implementation is tough. And what you have to remember is, it's very easy for me to come and tell you, you'll also go away saying, हाँ कुछ अच्छा बताया उसने, but then you'll forget it after 1 week. But try to practice some of these, those that you can remember, and it's very helpful in them.